Hello brothers and welcome to Sigma Old Man Channel. Society's greatest fear is not chaos. It's the man who thrives outside its control. There's a reason lone wolves send shivers down the spine of the system. Sigma males don't bow to authority, don't chase approval, and don't follow the script society desperately wants everyone to read from. They walk their own path, answer to no one, and somehow, against all odds, succeed on their own terms. That kind of independence, it terrifies people. Here's a fact. Throughout history, the most disruptive innovators, thinkers, and revolutionaries have been outliers. They weren't the ones climbing social ladders or shaking hands in boardrooms. They were the ones tearing the whole structure down and rebuilding it better. Yet ironically, while society fears these men, it wouldn't survive without them. It's like resenting the fire that keeps you warm. So why does the world see Sigma males as a threat, and why, despite that fear, does it secretly rely on them more than it dares to admit? Let's break it down. Number one, they don't worship money, yet they know how to get it. Money is the ultimate leash society uses to keep people in line. It dictates who gets respect, who holds power, and who lives a life of comfort versus struggle. Most people spend their entire lives chasing it, bending over backward for promotions, sacrificing their freedom just to keep a paycheck coming in. Sigma males, they see the game for what it is. They don't worship money, yet they understand exactly how to get it, and that makes them a problem. Unlike most people, Sigma males don't see wealth as a status symbol or a measure of self-worth. They don't need a sports car to prove they've made it or a designer suit to feel important. Money to them is nothing more than a tool, a means to an end, not the end itself. This mindset makes them immune to the traps society lays out, like debt-fueled lifestyles, keeping up with appearances, or selling their souls for financial security. They refuse to be owned by a paycheck, which means they can't be manipulated through financial fear. The real threat Sigma males pose to the system is that they don't just reject the traditional money chase. They master it on their own terms. They don't play the corporate ladder game, yet they often end up wealthier than the ones who do. They don't beg for opportunities, they create them. They figure out how to make money work for them instead of becoming slaves to it. Whether through entrepreneurship, unconventional investments, or mastering high-value skills, they generate income in ways that give them freedom, not chains. Society relies on people being desperate for financial stability. It's what keeps businesses running, politicians in power, and institutions unchallenged. But Sigma males don't buy into the illusion that money equals control. They don't chase it at the expense of their independence, and they don't let it dictate their choices. This makes them incredibly dangerous in a world where most people are controlled through financial pressure. You can't bribe them. You can't guilt-trip them into meaningless work, and you definitely can't make them fear losing what they were never attached to in the first place. That kind of financial detachment is rare, powerful, and to those who profit off of control, downright terrifying. Number two, they are hard to manipulate because they don't crave belonging. Most people will go to extreme lengths just to fit in, agreeing with things they don't believe in, following trends they secretly hate, and even suppressing their own thoughts just to avoid rocking the boat. The fear of being cast out is one of the strongest psychological leashes society has, and it keeps the majority in check. But Sigma males, that leash doesn't work on them. They don't crave belonging, which makes them nearly impossible to manipulate. People who desperately want to be accepted are easy to control. All it takes is the right amount of peer pressure, social disapproval, or the silent threat of being left out, and they'll fall in line. They'll force themselves to agree with nonsense, pretend to be someone they're not, and bite their tongues even when they know better. The mere idea of being alone is terrifying to them. Sigma males? They aren't wired that way. They don't need a tribe to feel secure, and they don't look to others for validation. Their confidence doesn't come from being included. It comes from knowing who they are, whether people approve of it or not. Because they don't fear social exclusion, they have no reason to conform. They don't fake opinions to please the crowd. They don't nod along to avoid awkwardness. They don't waste energy trying to impress people they don't even respect. This makes them immune to one of the biggest weapons society uses against individuals: ostracization. You can't use the threat of being an outcast to break someone who thrives in solitude. This level of independence frustrates those who rely on groupthink to maintain control. Institutions, social movements, and even corporations thrive on collective agreement. They need people to buy in, whether it's to an ideology, a culture, or a product. But Sigma males don't buy into anything blindly. If it doesn't make sense to them, they walk away, and they don't lose sleep over it. This is why people often find them unsettling. They can't be guilt-tripped into submission, shamed into compliance, or tricked into following the herd. They make their own choices based on logic, not fear. And in a world where most people are controlled by their need for acceptance, that kind of freedom isn't just rare, it's almost alien. Number 3, they are proof that you don't need society to succeed. Society has spent decades convincing people that success is a straight road. Go to school, climb the corporate ladder, shake the right hands, follow the rules, and maybe, just maybe, you'll earn a slice of the pie. It's a system designed to keep people dependent, constantly chasing validation and opportunities that are controlled by others. Sigma males expose this entire illusion by doing the unthinkable, succeeding entirely on their own terms. They don't waste time at soul-sucking networking events, pretending to like people they don't respect just for the sake of connections. They don't waste years waiting for some higher-up to recognize their worth and hand them a promotion. They don't mold themselves into what society expects just to be deemed worthy of success. Instead, they carve their own path. They master skills that give them leverage. They build businesses that free them from the system. And they create opportunities instead of waiting for permission. This is dangerous to a world that thrives on control. The idea that someone can rise without playing by the rules is a direct challenge to the system itself. If success isn't tied to endless meetings, corporate hierarchies, or fake social games, then what's stopping others from doing the same? Sigma males prove that you don't have to conform, you don't have to beg, and you don't have to sacrifice your individuality just to make it. That truth alone is enough to shake the foundation of how society operates. People fear what they don't understand, and most can't comprehend a man who doesn't need approval to thrive. They assume anyone who steps outside the system is doomed to fail. But when a Sigma male does the impossible, when he rises without playing the game, he forces everyone to question the lies they've been sold. And that kind of awakening, it terrifies those in power. Because if more people realize they don't need the system to win, the system itself starts to crumble. Number 4, they can't be controlled, and that's a problem for the system. Society runs on a simple formula: obedience equals order. The system doesn't want individuals, it wants predictable, manageable groups. It needs workers who show up on time, follow instructions, and never ask, why am I doing this? It needs consumers who buy what they're told to want, not those who think critically about value. It needs citizens who accept the rules without questioning who benefits from them. Sigma males break this formula completely, and that makes them a serious problem. You can't control a man who thinks for himself. Sigma males don't blindly trust authority, whether it's corporate, political, or social. They don't buy into the idea that just because something is popular, it's right. They don't respect a system simply because it exists. This makes them dangerous in a world that relies on people following orders without hesitation. When a Sigma male refuses to play along, it forces others to notice just how much they've been conditioned to obey without thinking. They also reject the idea of blind loyalty. Society loves labels, political parties, corporate cultures, social movements, because they create a sense of belonging that keeps people emotionally invested. But Sigma males don't pledge allegiance to ideologies, organizations, or authority figures just because everyone else does. They decide for themselves what makes sense, and if something stops making sense, they walk away without a second thought. That kind of independence is unsettling to those in power because it's impossible to manipulate. Then there's political correctness and herd mentality, two of society's most powerful tools. Most people censor their own thoughts just to avoid conflict, saying what's safe rather than what's true. Sigma males don't play that game. They don't adjust their opinions to fit the narrative, and they refuse to be bullied into submission. That kind of raw authenticity disrupts the social order where most people are trained to keep their heads down and stay in line. The real issue? Sigma males expose the illusion of control. If one man can reject the system and thrive, others might start questioning why they're still following it. And the moment people stop being predictable, the entire foundation of control starts to crack. That's why the system fears Sigma males, because they prove that true power doesn't come from obeying. It comes from thinking for yourself. Number 5. They're the only ones who see through society's lies. Society thrives on deception. It feeds people carefully crafted narratives designed to keep them in line, convincing them that success means working themselves to exhaustion, that happiness comes from buying more things, and that authority figures always have their best interests at heart. Most people accept these lies without question, not because they're ignorant, but because questioning them would mean confronting an uncomfortable truth. They've been controlled all along. Sigma males don't have that problem. They see through the illusion, and that makes them dangerous. Unlike the average person, Sigma males aren't emotionally invested in society's manufactured beliefs. They don't fall for corporate propaganda that tells them they need the latest gadget to be relevant. They don't put blind faith in politicians who pretend to care while serving their own interests. They don't get swept up in the fear-mongering that turns people into mindless followers. Instead, they analyze, they question, and most importantly, they think for themselves. Trends, for example, are one of society's most effective psychological traps. Most people follow them instinctively, desperate to fit in. But Sigma males don't buy into collective hype. They see trends for what they really are. Manipulative cycles designed to make people feel like they're constantly behind. They don't need external validation, so they aren't easily swayed by what's popular today and irrelevant tomorrow. This makes them immune to one of the biggest tools used to control the masses, the fear of missing out. And then there's mass hysteria, the emotional storms that sweep through society, making people act irrationally, vote against their own interests, or panic over carefully engineered crises. Sigma males don't react like everyone else. They step back, observe, and ask, who benefits from this? That kind of awareness makes them unpredictable, and unpredictability is a problem for those who profit from control. The real reason society fears Sigma males is simple. They expose the system's biggest secret. Most of what people believe isn't truth, it's programming. And once you see through the programming, you can't be controlled. A single person waking up isn't a threat. But if others start waking up, the entire system starts to collapse. That's why independent thinkers aren't just ignored or dismissed, they're actively silenced. Number 6, they are lone wolves in a world that worships the pack. Human nature is built on the pack mentality. From the earliest tribes to modern society, people have relied on the group for survival, validation, and purpose. Being alone used to mean death. And even now, most people panic at the thought of standing on their own. They fear rejection, loneliness, and the burden of thinking for themselves. But Sigma males, they don't share this fear. They operate as lone wolves in a world that worships the herd and that unsettles people on a deep, almost primal level. Most people see isolation as punishment, a sign that something is wrong with you. Society teaches that the more connections you have, the more successful and valuable you are. That's why people surround themselves with social circles they don't even like, force friendships that feel empty, and stay in groups that drain them just to avoid the stigma of being alone. But Sigma males live by a different code. They don't need a pack. Their self-worth isn't tied to social belonging, and their independence isn't some act of rebellion, it's just who they are. This disrupts the way most people think. If a Sigma male is perfectly fine on his own, what does that say about the majority who believe they need others to function? It forces an uncomfortable question. Am I dependent on the group because I want to be, or because I'm afraid of who I'd be without it? Most avoid that question entirely. It's easier to label Sigma males as strange, antisocial, or arrogant than to admit they might have found a kind of freedom that the rest of the world is too afraid to claim. But it goes even deeper than that. Lone wolves don't just survive outside the pack, they thrive. Sigma males don't need constant reassurance, validation, or groupthink to feel secure. They don't seek approval, don't engage in social games, and don't rely on others to define their identity. This makes them a direct challenge to society's unspoken rule. You need the group to be whole. The fact that they don't shatters an illusion that's been drilled into people for generations, and for those still trapped in the herd, that realization is both uncomfortable and infuriating. Number 7, they hold themselves to higher standards than society does. Society has become a place where excuses are currency. People blame their upbringing, the economy, unfair systems, and everything under the sun for why they aren't where they want to be. Mediocrity is not only accepted but encouraged. Participation trophies, victimhood culture, and the expectation that life should be easy. Sigma males don't buy into any of it. They operate by a brutally simple philosophy. Your life is your responsibility. No one is coming to save you. This kind of mindset is rare in a world that thrives on external blame. Most people expect society to accommodate them, but Sigma males believe in adapting and evolving instead. If they fail, they don't cry about it or expect sympathy. They analyze, learn, and come back stronger. If circumstances are unfair, they don't waste energy complaining. They find a way around them. This level of self-discipline makes them intimidating because it highlights how much weaker and more dependent society has become. The biggest issue? Sigma males make people uncomfortable simply by existing. When someone refuses to make excuses and pushes themselves beyond the limits society has set, it forces everyone around them to confront an unpleasant truth. Maybe I could be doing more. That's a hard pill to swallow for those who have spent their lives coasting on minimal effort. Instead of rising to the challenge, most people do the easier thing. They resent the one who refuses to lower their standards. But what really terrifies society is that Sigma males don't need validation. Most high achievers still crave recognition, but Sigma males push themselves for their own reasons. They don't care about applause, they don't seek approval, and they certainly don't wait for permission. This makes them unpredictable and, more importantly, uncontrollable. A man who doesn't need rewards or recognition can't be bribed, guilt-tripped, or manipulated into compliance. At the core of it all, Sigma males expose a reality that many would rather ignore: the gap between who people could be and who they actually choose to be. While most settle for comfort, Sigma males chase excellence. While most blame external forces, Sigma males take full accountability, and while most seek shortcuts, Sigma males embrace the hard road because they know that true power comes from mastering yourself, not waiting for the world to hand you an easier path. Number 8, they do what's right, not what's expected. Most people shape their actions around one thing: approval. They don't ask, is this right? They ask, will people like me if I do this? Society runs on this unwritten rule: conform, obey, and blend in, or risk being cast out. Sigma males don't play that game. They have their own moral code, and it has nothing to do with what's trending, what's expected, or what will make them look good. This makes them a serious problem in a world that depends on people choosing popularity over principles. The reality is most people will abandon their beliefs the second they feel social pressure. They'll pretend to support things they don't believe in, stay silent when they should speak up, and go along with absurdity just to avoid conflict. Sigma males, they couldn't care less. If something is stupid, they'll call it out. If something is wrong, they won't pretend it's right just because everyone else is clapping. They have no interest in playing along with nonsense to be liked. This terrifies people for one simple reason: it exposes how weak and easily influenced most of them are. When a Sigma male stands firm while everyone else folds, it forces people to see how spineless they've become. It's uncomfortable, it's infuriating. And instead of confronting their own cowardice, most people do the easier thing. They label Sigma males as difficult, rebellious, or problematic. But the real danger is that Sigma males can't be controlled. Society relies on peer pressure to keep people in line. If everyone agrees on something, even if it's ridiculous, it becomes the truth. Sigma males disrupt this because they don't look to the crowd for guidance. They don't care if their opinion makes them an outsider. They don't care if they stand alone. And when someone refuses to bend, it gives others the courage to question things too. That's what makes them truly dangerous. They prove that you don't have to sell your soul for acceptance. You don't have to betray your principles just to fit in. And you don't have to follow a script written by people who don't even think for themselves. In a world where approval is currency, Sigma males are bankrupt, and that makes them the freest men alive. Number 9, they can't be cancelled or shamed into submission. Cancel culture thrives on one thing: fear. The fear of being disliked, the fear of losing status, the fear of being cast out. It works because most people are desperate for approval, willing to self-censor, apologize, or change their entire personality just to avoid public backlash. Sigma males, however, are a nightmare for this system. Why? Because they don't need validation to function. You can't shame someone who doesn't seek approval, and you can't cancel someone who never asked to be included in the first place. Most people, when faced with criticism, panic. They rush to issue apologies, backtrack on their beliefs, or beg for forgiveness from people who were never on their side to begin with. Sigma males? They do none of that. They don't apologize for things they don't regret, they don't engage in performative guilt, and they don't crumble under pressure. Society's biggest weapon, public shaming, falls flat when used against someone who doesn't care about the court of public opinion. This is why they're feared. A Sigma male doesn't need the approval of strangers, so no amount of online outrage, hit pieces, or smear campaigns will change how he lives. If you take away his social status, he shrugs. If you try to destroy his reputation, he doesn't flinch. If you threaten to cut him off from the mainstream, he was never trying to be part of it anyway. The entire system of control breaks down when it meets someone who is completely indifferent to it. And that indifference is what makes them dangerous. Sigma males expose the truth that society doesn't want people to realize. Public opinion is powerless unless you give it power. The moment you stop fearing being disliked, you become untouchable. That's what makes cancel culture work, the fear of rejection. But if you remove that fear, the system has nothing left to use against you. This is why Sigma males don't just survive cancel attempts, they walk right through them, untouched. They are a living example of what happens when a man refuses to let society dictate his worth. And that, more than anything, terrifies those who rely on the herd mentality to maintain control. Number 10, they are silent revolutionaries who change the world from the shadows. Society expects revolutionaries to be loud, protests, speeches, grand declarations. These are the ways people assume real change happens. But Sigma males operate differently. They don't chant slogans or demand recognition. They don't need crowds to validate their cause. Instead, they work in silence behind the scenes, making moves that shift the world without anyone realizing it until it's already done. This is what makes them so unsettling. Most people fight for change by seeking attention first, posting online, gathering support, or trying to rally others to their side. Sigma males, they skip the theatrics. While everyone else is talking, they're building. While others seek approval, they're executing. And by the time the world notices what they've done, it's too late to stop it. The most terrifying part? They don't do it for recognition. Most people want credit for their efforts. They want applause, validation, and a legacy attached to their name. Sigma males couldn't care less. Their motivation isn't external, it's internal. They change things because they can, not because they need anyone to notice. This confuses people who rely on ego-driven leadership. How do you control a man who doesn't crave attention? How do you manipulate someone who doesn't care about status? The answer is, you can't. History is full of men like this, the masterminds, the silent architects of change, the ones who reshaped entire industries, ideologies, and systems without standing in the spotlight. These are the people who don't ask permission. They don't seek a movement to join. They simply do, and their actions ripple across the world long after they're gone. That's what makes Sigma males so dangerous. They don't need approval to make an impact. They don't need a stage to be powerful. And because they move in silence, society never sees them coming until their influence is already woven into the fabric of reality. The world may celebrate loud revolutionaries, but it's the silent ones who truly rewrite the rules. Number 11, they don't believe in false authority. Most people are conditioned from birth to obey authority without question. They're taught to respect titles, follow orders, and assume that those in charge must know better. Sigma males see right through this illusion. To them, authority is meaningless unless it's backed by competence, wisdom, or genuine leadership. A title doesn't impress them, a position doesn't intimidate them, and a uniform or degree doesn't automatically earn their respect. This is what makes them dangerous to the establishment. The system relies on blind obedience. Society functions smoothly when people follow rules without thinking, accept hierarchy without questioning, and believe that those in power are somehow superior. But Sigma males refuse to play along. They don't bow to someone just because they have more money, influence, or a fancier office. They analyze, they judge based on actions, not status. And if they see incompetence, corruption, or hypocrisy in leadership, they don't hesitate to call it out or simply walk away from the whole game. This kind of thinking is a direct threat to those who thrive on unearned respect. Weak leaders, corrupt officials, and egotistical bosses hate men like this because they can't manipulate them with authority alone. Sigma males won't flatter them, won't obey out of fear, and won't pretend to respect them just to keep the peace. This refusal to submit makes them unpredictable and uncontrollable, the exact opposite of what the system wants. But what really makes them dangerous is that their mindset is contagious. When a Sigma male questions authority, others start doing the same. When he refuses to be intimidated by rank, it forces people to reconsider their own blind obedience. And when he proves that power doesn't automatically mean competence, it shatters the illusion that keeps weak leaders in control. Society needs people who challenge authority, but it also fears them. Because once enough people stop respecting titles without reason, the entire power structure starts to crack. Sigma males don't just refuse to be ruled by false authority, they expose it for what it really is, an illusion upheld by fear, compliance, and the desperate need for validation. And once that illusion breaks, those who rely on it have nowhere left to hide. Society thrives on control, control through fear, approval, and the illusion that power is something you're supposed to submit to without question. Sigma males break every rule in this system simply by existing. They can't be manipulated because they don't crave belonging. They can't be silenced because they don't fear rejection. They can't be controlled because they don't play the same game as everyone else. And that terrifies those who rely on obedience to maintain their influence. They expose uncomfortable truths, that you don't need society's approval to succeed, that real power isn't found in titles but in competence, that the loudest voices aren't always the wisest, and the strongest leaders don't seek recognition. They prove that change isn't always loud, it can be quiet, strategic, and executed in the shadows. And most importantly, they remind people that the moment you stop fearing public opinion, you become untouchable. This is why society both fears and needs them. They disrupt the status quo, but they also force evolution. They challenge weak leadership, but they also create progress. They don't ask for permission to exist, and that alone is revolutionary. In a world obsessed with conformity, Sigma males are a rare breed, the men who stand alone yet reshape everything around them. If this breakdown of why society both fears and needs Sigma males resonated with you, don't just keep it to yourself. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on content that challenges the norm. And let's keep the conversation going. Drop a comment below with your thoughts because your perspective matters here. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because the more we question, the more we grow. Until next time, keep thinking for yourself and standing strong.